Magic 87.6, Andrew on the radio, and always a pleasure. Matthew Dickerson, hello.
Oh, thanks, mate. Saying it's always a pleasure. I feel so warm and fuzzy.
I know that's kind of I'm a lover. I just like to exhume the love to people, man. I don't like to fight with people. You know that sharing the love. That's what it's all about.
We should change this segment, not hard tech talk. We should have, like the sharing the love around the region.
Yeah, we should turn it around to sharing the tech love.
That sounds good.
Oh yeah, it's off. We'll get my people to workshop with your people. We'll
Sure.
work out a better segment. Yeah. Now, one of the things when you were a kid, Matt, was your push bike. It was your world. It got you to places. It was always a pain when you had a puncture. And did you use little really bad super glue and off bits of rubber to kind of fix your bike tires
You did
back in the day?
anything you could. Now it's a bit better nowadays. I've got air or tubeless tyres that I run in my mountain bike, and I've got a goop inside them that self-fixes most punches, but it's still not perfect. But you can remember back to those days when we were riding around at school and you had some kid who had these solid rubber tyres and you went, oh, that sounds
Yeah.
fantastic. He's never going to get a puncture until you got on his bike and then you went, holy struth, these things are heavy. So that wasn't such a
Yeah.
good idea after all. But NASA's had to contend with this problem as well. When NASA sends off their rovers to land on, places like Mars, for example, they kind of don't have a little puncture repair kit in the rover that they can just whip out and fix a puncture while it's rolling around some foreign land. So they have to make tyres that can get around and be efficient to use and not get punctures. So they come up with some pretty cool materials they put into these to have airless tyres on their rovers. And a tyre manufacturer is now bringing those same materials, that same technology, to good old-fashioned push bike tyres. They're calling it metal, METL, Martensite elasticized tubular loading. The stuff is made of nickel and titanium, so you can imagine it's not going to be cheap. I don't have a price for
Right.
you yet. But what it does, which is really clever, is it deforms and flexes around like a normal tyre would that has air inside it. But unlike steel that would continually go in and out and then finally fatigue and obviously break it, it would lose its springiness, if you like. This particular material doesn't lose its springiness. So it's got all the advantages of having air in your tyre. It still deforms, it still goes over rocks and over hill and down dale, all those things there, but you're never going to get a puncture. And because it's made of materials like titanium, they're a little bit heavier than it would be if it was a normal tyre with air in it, but not much heavier than a tyre with air in it. But again, never have to worry about those punches. So I think it sounds great. I can hardly wait to see them come out. They're talking about them coming out first of all for mountain bikes, which is good for me. I like riding mountain bikes. Road
Yeah.
bikes, they still think they might be a little bit heavy for road bikes, but they're still working on those at the moment. But I can see this being a revolution in bicycle tyres. Our kids won't know about the fun of
No.
walking home from being 10 kilometres away, pushing your bike all the way because you've got a flat tyre.
Yeah. See, I just wish they had this technology when I was 7 years old, man. Then maybe I wouldn't have fallen off my bike and broken my wrist.
Maybe. So you blaming that on a flat tyre, are you?
Yeah, it was, because I went over this kind of footpath and the joint was kind of up a little bit and it kind of, you get the wobbles and then it's all over. Because, once your tire goes over that kind of raised bit that you're in trouble.
So I'm
And
still
especially on a downhill decline.
I'm trying to hear the bit where you had a puncture and all of that. It sounds like just lack of control.
Well, can I just say, after I fell off my bike and I broke my wrist, I had a serious puncture in it because my dad went and got a screwdriver and went, "You're never riding that bloody thing again," straight through the rubber.
Ah, good. He's probably saved your life.
Yeah. Now, apps, we all have them, but have you ever noticed that all of a sudden apps appear on your phone, Matt? Have you ever had that?
Well, there's a couple of things that happen. Apps can appear on your phone that you don't really know that are there, or you can download apps that you think are free or maybe a small cost for them, but there is sometimes a huge cost. And Australia is the world leader in being fleeced. We've got 10 million downloads of fleeceware apps. It's cost the country so far $9.9 million. And most people don't know, or certainly don't know at the beginning, that they are being fleeced by these fleeceware apps. And so the idea is you download it, it's free, you use the trial, this is all great. And before you realise it, suddenly some money's being charged on your credit card, or you check your next statement, suddenly there's a much larger number there than it should be. And the number one offender, the top offender, I'm sure you're not, and I don't want to have any opinion of any of your listeners that might have downloaded this, Andrew, but I'm sure you don't have this app. It's Fortune Scope. It's a live palm reader and fortune teller. Now, as if it's not bad enough to download that app, some people are being charged $66 a week, $3,500 a year to have their palm read and their fortunes told. I hope the fortune teller says stop downloading apps that are costing you $66 per week. But that's certainly one that's the top seller, if you like, in the fleeceware range. There's another one called Flame, which is a dating app. Now, they actually say to use this dating app, it's going to cost you $119.99 a year. And people might be comfortable with that. That's okay. But it doesn't charge you $119.99. It charges you $780 a year. And again, they just sneak these little extra costs in. They have things in the programs that trick you into either subscribing or making purchases in there. And before you know it, you're running up hundreds of dollars of bills. So I suppose the main thing is look at those trial apps, look at the trial periods, read the terms and conditions, but more importantly, just check your bank statements and see. And you're unlikely to get your money back. You might be able to get some of your money back, but at least you can stop the app or get rid of the app if you find some of these apps are fleecing you of your money.
I had an incident with my dad's mobile a couple of weeks ago. He sat there and he said, "Can you stop these notifications?" And I went, "Yeah, what are your notifications?" And he said, "This QR thing, whatever it is." And I looked and he had 3 QR scanners on his phone. And I said, "How'd you get 3 QR scanners on your phone?" He said, "I don't know, they just appeared." I'm like, stuff just doesn't appear. What have you been downloading? He goes, "I don't know, it was just there." I'm like, yeah.
The fleeceware manufacturers, that's another one that they've been targeting. They've been often targeting QR code scanners because we've all had to use QR code scanners during the pandemic. And suddenly these QR code scanners, which are free, are sometimes only free for a trial.
Yeah, that's all right, man. My dad's good for a couple of bucks extra. He's helping out the third world. It's fine.
Good on him.
Now, movies, especially in the 80s, Matt, I was a fan of Weird Science. Did you watch that one with Kelly LeBrock?
Yeah. I liked. Is that the only reason you watched it?
Yeah, Kelly LeBrock. That's all I'm watching it for. but I remember
5 favourite plots from Weird Science. Were you? They all involved Kelly LeBrock, I assume.
Yeah, I can just remember them creating the woman on the computer and enhancing her.
Yep.
That's all I remember from that. And then Kelly LeBrock handing out all the cool cars at the end. One got a Ferrari, one got a Porsche, and the rest of it was trash. But apparently,
much about it.
I know, right? But now all of a sudden, all that photo magical enhancement could be a reality.
It could be. Look, I've always laughed about that, and I've been the first one to mock some of these movies when they're looking at a number plate from thousands of kilometres away, and someone comes in, the IT guy with thick glasses, and presses the enhance button, and suddenly you can read that number plate perfectly. And so we all laugh, and of course you can't create extra pixels, and what a silly idea that is. But you can. Photoshop has come up with a new feature, and it's available right now if you've got some of the latest Photoshop apps, the super resolution feature. And it's using some pretty clever AI where it will actually quadruple the resolution of your photos without completely removing the quality of it. So you can, and I actually had a look at some photos that have been enhanced by this particular feature, and it actually does take photos that look, you see a photo and it's just a little bit blurry in the distance and it's a bit hard to read. And sometimes you zoom in on it and it gets harder to read when it gets closer. But you run it through this particular program and it does take a while. There's a fair bit of heavy-duty processing going on, but you run it through that and it actually sharpens up everything, makes it look a bit better, and I'm actually pretty impressed with it. So it doesn't do quite the thing where a blurry object suddenly becomes a perfectly in-focus number plate, but a slightly out of focus number plate suddenly gets a lot sharper and a lot easier to read. So it's pretty impressive. Again, you can imagine the AI involved in this where it's trying to match up going from this pixel to this pixel. Now go and chuck out a few extra pixels in between and make them look like the correct pixels that are there. That creates a fair bit of processing power or requires some processing power. And then when you actually say, now go and change the photo, that's some heavy-duty processing as well. But it's pretty good for a first iteration out in the public sphere. I'm pretty impressed with it.
Yeah, it's only taken 40 years for something from Knight Rider to actually become reality.
Oh, look, I'm convinced, Andrew, that everything that happens in the movies is not actually real. I've got this theory on that. I think they make it up sometimes, you know.
Look, man, I'm still waiting for someone to create the car that's got the TV screen in it that auto drives, and I can play Space Invaders at the same time, just like Hasselhoff did in Knight Rider.
Yeah,
that,
that's
that's
fine.
that's the number one AI feature that I want. Just someone give me that, and I'm happy.
And having an intelligent conversation with someone with a bit of attitude, like Kit had.
Yes, that's what I want as well. Yeah, we've talked about Spot the Robot Dog before, Matt, but now apparently he's got a buddy called Stretch.
Stretch, yeah, sounds like something from The Incredibles, doesn't it? Where he stretches out.
Yeah.
And it is a bit like that. So this particular robot is designed for warehousing. Now, lots of warehouses, I've been in warehouses, and they're incredible when they've got these unbelievable robots. But at the moment, all the robotics in warehouses that I'm familiar with all go along certain tracks, and they're stuck on their railway lines, if you like, and they can go up and down aisles and move their robotics up and down to pick up products. But this particular robot called Stretch can actually move around to wherever he needs to go. He's got a very heavy base, so as it moves around, it looks kind of like a big box at the bottom and then an arm and an eye on top. So it looks a bit foreign, not as good looking as Spot the Dog. But because it's got that very heavy base, it's got this incredible arm, hence the name, Stretch, that can move out and pick up various objects at long distances away from itself, pick them up, take them around to where they need to go. They can be up to 23 kilograms in weight, so fairly heavy objects that it can pick up. It's got suction cups on the end. The interesting part is they talk about this particular version of Stretch being as fast as a human. Now, you'd kind of say, well, what's the big deal if it's only as fast as a human? The big advantage of Stretch is Stretch can go 24 hours a day. Stretch doesn't need to stop for a coffee break, for a lunch break, and he's incredibly accurate with what he does, and he's a little bit cheaper to pay than having a human on there. So for things like warehousing, if people are working in a warehouse now, I'd be making sure that they're skilling up in other areas, maybe radio announcer, for example, and making sure they've got those other skills, because this sort of thing is going to come along and make it very easy for people in very small warehouses to replace some humans with robots.
Are you saying I'm going to become obsolete?
No, I'm saying people should be going for jobs that need humans, like radio announcers.
No, because someone somewhere is inventing the DJ 3000.
I think you're probably right. I think there will be some movement towards that, but hopefully it's the thing that humans can do so well. Robots and computers are great at remembering stuff, regurgitating stuff, but humans can think, and that's the real talent that we just haven't seen yet from AI, and I think it's a long way away. So while you're thinking, you've got a job, Andrew.
Can I just say, I am very well house trained. I do know more than one thing, and I can multitask. So to anyone looking for a 46-year-old, 134 kilo, 6'4" radio announcer, I'm good in any situation.
That's a very specific job role you've given yourself there.
I know, right? I know. So don't call me and I won't call you. It's fine. One thing that I want, Matt, is I want a combi. I reckon combis are cool. Do you reckon combis are cool?
They are, and my brother had one when I was a kid growing up, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And then he managed to roll it down a hill, because they're not probably the safest thing. They're a bit top heavy, the old combi. So yeah, it was my brother got out of it fine, but it was a bit of a disaster, the combi. I got there, and once I realised my brother was okay, I looked at it, and the whole combi, because it had rolled down every single panel on the whole thing, was all bounced around. It would have been a pretty scary experience for him, because you can imagine it'd be like being in a sardine can just bounced around. But VW hasn't made the combi since about 1980. And there are a few reasons for that. One of them was safety. You can imagine from the front of the car to where your legs were was probably about 3 millimetres. So any front-end collision was probably going to fail in any of the tests they had to see how safe they were. But VW is bringing the combi back. But they're doing the modern version of the combi. Of course, it's electric. That's the first thing. And it's much safer being electric, because the batteries, as with every electric car I've ever seen, are all down on the floor of the combi. So even though you've got a fairly high car, you've got all that weight down low, so it keeps the centre of gravity very low, and obviously that makes it much safer. They've got a self-driving version. Again, don't know if it's got the attitude of Kit, but a self-driving version is coming out. They're releasing versions in America, in Europe. So I think it'll be pretty exciting, and this is part of this whole VW push. VW, after the whole Dieselgate scandal with VW, they saw their redemption, their way back to the hearts and minds of people across the world was an electric future. And so they're coming out with a range of these, they're calling them ID3, ID4, ID5, these electric vehicle platforms where they put different tops on. And this is another one of those where they'll use a common base and put a combi top on it. So I reckon pretty cool. If you've got a big family, you've got a few friends that want to travel around, I can see them being used for hire cars. I reckon the VW Combi electric version is going to be a big hit.
I hope they still use that classic round shape of the Combi, because when they changed it in the 80s to that Transporter and they turned it into that bloody horrible rectangular box thing, it just lost its whole feel.
It did. And what they've done is, from a safety aspect, they've put a bit more in front of the passenger so that you could have a head-on collision and have some possibility of having your legs at the end of that. So they've changed that at the front of it a bit. At the back, they've kept that sort of boxy look. They've tried to capture that spirit of the Combi. One of the things that was a great urban myth I used to love about the Combi, and I actually went researching for an article I was writing one day, and I couldn't find any proof, so I'm convinced it's a myth. But somewhere supposedly in a Combi user manual, that used to get good old-fashioned paper manuals when you bought a car, it said, we encourage all Combi drivers just to wave to other Combi drivers. And so there was this myth that every Combi driver used to wave to other Combi drivers around. Again, I could find zero evidence to support that in any manual, but I love the idea that it was encouraging people just to be friendly with our fellow Combi drivers.
Yeah, because you know the Combi's all about sharing the love. And that's all I'm saying about loving in Combis.
Zero comment from me as well, Andrew.